Good morning. We'll try doing it this way. I've been having some internet issues. This is the sermon for June 20th. It is based on the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4, verses 35 through 31. On that day, when evening had come, Jesus said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowds behind, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. Other boats were with them. A great gale arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" Jesus woke up and rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased, and there was dead calm. He said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you no faith?" And they were filled with great awe, and said to one another, "Who is this then, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" Please join me in prayer. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. For the sermon today, I am recording it on my phone as I was having connection issues. Please join me in prayer. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. I realize I said that twice. I can remember going to the Badlands in South Dakota with my family. And the Badlands are an area that is very dry and very, it's got a lot of arroyos, a lot of streams across it. We went for a hike, really one of the only trails there. It's about 4 miles long. And the plan was that my father, middle sister, and I would hike all of those 4 miles, and that my mother and youngest sister would move the van to, would drop us off, hike with us for half mile, and move the van to meet up with us. As we were hiking along and enjoying ourselves mightily, going from one level of that rugged terrain to another, we noticed clouds growing in the distance. We soon started walking faster, then we started jogging, then we started running. And before we knew it, those clouds had rushed from the edge of the horizon to cover the whole face of the sky. The winds rose. All of a sudden there was rain and thunder and lightning and hail. And that rain poured down like a veritable sheet, and those arroyos filled with rushing water. It was a terrifying, awesome storm. We were running, all of a sudden visibility was lower, and getting into the van felt like a place of safety and security. When you think of storms, you might think of some of the storms that you have encountered. You might think of times that you have seen wind and rain. You might think of the damage that those storms can create. I know here in Oregon, the windstorms of September, I think it was 4th of last year, caused terrible devastation as flames were whipped up and created wildfires whose effect we're still encountering. I also know that sometimes we talk about storms and we're not talking about a literal storm. We're instead talking about things that we struggle with in life. We're talking about storms that shake us to our core. For instance, when we go through a hard time in life, we might refer to that as a storm. In Mark's gospel today, Jesus rebukes the storm. You might recognize that this is language that he is doing with the demons that he's encountering in Mark chapters 1, 2, and 3. When Jesus encounters evil, he rebukes evil. And this isn't just like if I said, "Hey, go away, evil." This is Jesus causing reality to change, casting demons out, making those who are sick healthy again. When Jesus rebukes the wind stops. This storm, therefore, is not just a meteorological event. It is an apocalyptic event. This storm is something that is threatening, and Jesus, in an apocalyptic manner, reveals some of who he is by stilling the storm. For Mark's hearers, they would not have thought of just a literal storm. They would also be thinking of the storm that they have gone through. Mark's gospel was written around 70 AD in the ashes and ruins of the devastation of the Jewish revolt against Rome. Jerusalem had been leveled. It had been laid waste. If you've ever seen pictures of Europe, of Berlin after World War II, Jerusalem was like that. Hardly a stone left on stone. There were ruins and devastation and destruction everywhere. Mark's gospel was written just in the aftermath of that devastation, just in the aftermath of that metaphorical storm. And Mark is telling his readers that Jesus has power not just over meteorological events, which, let's be honest, is pretty darn awesome. Jesus also has authority over events that are cosmic in nature. Jesus speaks, and everything, illness, disease, the powers of sin and death, storms, the sea, the sky, everything listens to him because he is Lord. In our lives, in my life, perhaps in your life as well, I feel like I have been going through a storm. This storm of the last 15 months has been a difficult one. A storm of uncertainty, a storm of pandemic and want and fear, a storm where we don't know what to put our faith in, a storm where institutions that we were sure were going to be solid have been shaken to their core. But one thing that is true of us and was true of Mark's hearers and was true of the disciples is that Jesus speaks and reality listens. Is that Jesus says to our country and our time, to all countries and to all times, that he is Lord, that he is sovereign, that everything will respond to him. Jesus is Lord of the wind and the waves. Jesus speaks to the storms, to the demons, to the illnesses, and causes them to cease. Jesus says, "Follow me." And we as disciples try to follow. Try to go into the boat with Jesus, even though we're scared. I thought about this also in the context of a famous quote by Annie Dillard. This quote's almost as old as I am. It was written in 1982. And this is what Dillard said. "It is madness to wear ladies' straw hats and velvet hats to church. We should be wearing crash helmets. Ushers should issue life preservers and signal flares. They should lash us to our pews. For the sleeping God may wake someday and take offense, or the waking God may draw us to where we can never return." Jesus goes boldly into the storms of life, both literal and figurative. And Jesus draws us to him, draws us far from shore, far from our places of safety, draws us out into the open waters to see God's power and to be changed by it. Amen.